sent me every single one of their Gen 5 sitting cuties for me to rank. Turns out they really liked that video. So much, in fact, that they said, "Hey Jaiden, awesome video. Why don't you come to Japan to watch the Pokemon 2023 World Championships?" Our treat. You won't have to pay for your flights or hotel or nothing.
I've never been to Japan before and have zero self-control in buying merchandise, so imagine how conflicted I was when Pokemon himself offered to fly me out all the way to Yokohama, Japan for their World Championship.
I jumped for joy. Free trip to Japan!
Hashtag Pokemon partner.
The tournament was only going on for a single weekend, but Jacob and I planned to stay there for 3 whole weeks to do a bunch of said extra nerdy stuff. We were pumped. Eventually the time came, Jacob and I were packing up all our stuff, and decided we both would bring an extra suitcase so we could treat ourselves a bit and buy a bunch of cool stuff while we're there.
Because, come on.
Don't judge us. We're anime and Nintendo loving impulse buyers going to Japan. A game plan was needed. We were being responsible. 2 extra suitcases was definitely gonna be enough. Yep.
I got to visit the local hell of LAX, and then I took to the skies. In hopes of getting on a decent Japanese sleep schedule right from the get-go, I slept on my plane for 6 hours and then scripted another video that required me to skim through 30 hours of Sonic Adventure 2. My job's kind of weird.
Pokemon straight up gave us business class seats. We didn't ask for them or anything. So when we boarded, we realized we had the seats where you could lay down. There even was some sort of seat divider that acted like a car window, so I could roll it down and bother Jacob whenever I wanted.
And after landing in the Tokyo airport, I was greeted by the one and only Hatsune Miku. It was a quick hello, sure, but we'll be seeing her again soon. And it was around this point when it finally hit me. I was in Japan. Like, place Japan. I mean, I grew up being obsessed with Pokemon, and now I'm being flown out by the exact same company to visit Japan?
It was time to have the best trip of our lives. I'm not joking. I had the most incredible trip and got to do things I won't ever forget. And I won't, because I've now plastered it onto the internet forever.
Like, I've done a lot of cool things on this channel, but this is a genuine dream come true and the start of the greatest trip of my entire life. But the first thing I noticed was that the entire city was decorated for Pokemon Worlds. From stairs in the airport to banners on the side of the road, and there was even art scattered all across Yokohama.
We landed midday Japan time, so we decided to go to the first thing we wanted to see while abroad.
McDonald's. I know this sounds dumb, but my stupid American brain has this deranged fixation on trying chain food in other countries. So hey, here's my current McDonald's tier list. Needless to say, McDonald's is pretty damn good.
I couldn't order anything except fries, but Jacob and I both dropped our jaws when we saw something called the Double Big Mac on the menu.
And that's like the most American thing I've ever heard of, so why haven't I ever heard of it? Note from future me, I tried it, and now I wish I didn't do that.
I thought Americans already went big with the Big Mac, but Japan did the impossible, just to send a message. What a magical place.
I got a big order, but I tried a McDouble with egg on it, had the best McNuggets of my life, and whatever the hell this thing is. Oh, I guess this is a good time to mention that I don't know how to speak Japanese, which probably isn't too much of a surprise. I mean, I learned how to read the hiragana alphabet through Duolingo, but like, what good is reading the words if you don't meet performers? And then I learned about the Holy Land of 7-Eleven. No, not 7-Eleven. 7-Eleven. Take what you know about this place and just throw it out the window. Because in Japan, 7-Eleven is revered as a holy land. Not only is the hot food, like, genuinely delicious, but they have everything you could ever ask for. From groceries, to porn, to pre-made meals, to Hatsune Miku tickets, all the liquor in the world, and even manga. I don't think manga was the most surprising thing I just said. So I grabbed the newest issue of One Piece and nothing else, and even though I had no idea what they were saying, it still felt special.
Let's begin with the next morning. Pokemon planned a bunch of cool stuff for the creators and partners they flew out, beginning with a group field trip to the Mega Tokyo Pokemon Center.
Personally, I'm pretty bad at meeting new people because of, social anxiety. But everyone was so nice to me, I almost forgot how anxious I am as a person. Almost.
Jacob and I woke up early for it and missed the bus they had for us. And it totally wasn't completely my fault entirely because I hypothetically didn't read the schedule correctly and was taking my sweet time getting ready. Why would you think that? So we had to take the trains on our own to get there. Anyone that remembers my first Japan trip knows the trains were me and my family's mortal enemy number one. We kept getting it wrong and it was failure after failure the entire trip. You'd think that with all that prior experience and struggle, I would have grown as a Japanese train understander, right? Nope, we got on the wrong train. But at least we were having a good time, haha. After a lot of freaking out and mental strain and regrets, we finally arrived at our destination, and although by the time we got there they had already finished looking at the Pokemon Center, we were able to grab a quick snack with the group at the Pokemon Sweets Cafe. I meant to take a picture of the Pikachu waffle before I ate half its cranium, but I forgot, so this is what you get.
Then Pokemon took us to this gorgeous tea garden, and trust me, videos do not do this place justice.
Where we were taught all about how the tea masters would make tea and tea etiquette and all these things about the significance of tea in Japanese culture.
We even got to watch a tea ceremony, let the tea master do what he does best.
Sure. All while getting to taste the tea master made. Again, I meant to take this picture before I took a chunk out of the little sweet they gave us, but here we are yet again. I'm just not that great at this.
And then Pokemon served us this whole dinner.
So fancy that the host was like, dude, I've never even had these bento boxes before. I was super excited, but I don't mean to be ungrateful or wasteful, but the box was full of super fancy, complicated fish and seafood. I knew going to Japan I'd have to be flexible with food because it's really hard to be vegan or even vegetarian there, so I really tried to eat as much as possible and look thankful. But yeah, I struggled a lot. But I still had a great time and it was an honor.
Pokemon boarded us up on a charter bus like a middle school field trip.
We were dropped off at the Yokohama Chinatown and left to explore a bit until dinner in a few hours. Everyone separated into groups, and Jacob, Stefan, the guy that sent me all the sitting cuties, you guys remember him, the guy named Steve, and I went and pursued the street food a bit.
That was phenomenal. And even got to try Japanese Dr. Pepper. Tastes like Dr. Pepper. I also did the touristy thing where I just go up to a shrine and point at it, but then had the strangest culture shock when I got lost in a random convenience store. Every product, like ever, is currently collaborating with another product. I guess to put it in other words, it's like Fortnite. Everything here is like Fortnite. I refuse to explain myself further.
Before stumbling into a little arcade with a bunch of crane machines.
That held me hostage until I finally got this goddamn Dragonair. Of course, there are tons of other cool prizes scattered throughout the arcade, but I was dedicated to the point of being classified as financial ruin. Yeah, I might have spent about 10,000 yen.
I got this silly little bear minifigure. His name is Chico, so I decided to innocently carry him around in my pocket for the entirety of the trip. You know, because he was silly.
They also had a tiny little Sprigatito plush that I eventually got. Ooh, many more.
This single action severely changed the course of my mental stability going forward. You'll see soon enough. But look at these cute photos I got with them.
And then took us out to a buffet afterward. They just wanted us, I don't get, that's a lot of food. So when that was all over, I hopped on the magic school bus and met up with a few friends for drinks after.
We had a great dinner, headed back to the hotel, got to hang out with our good old Pokemon rival Jan a bit.
And I don't remember the rest. This was the day where everything suddenly started going wrong. Unfortunately, all the creators got granted early access to the Pokemon World's pop-up merch store. Look, I've been to a good amount of pop-up stores, and what me and my wallet both expected was like a tiny little store that may have like a few exclusive items. But I was very incorrect. Like, of course they rented out a giant convention center for Worlds, but what I didn't know was they rented out another convention center next door to sell merch. So Jesus Christ, let me reassure you, I was not prepared for this, and neither was my accountant. There was just so much stuff there.
I'll just say we bought way too much stuff that we also don't regret in the slightest. I even got this video of Jacob grabbing more and more sitting cuties as the workers kept reorganizing them to keep the display looking perfect.
Like this deck of cards I bought for $30 that I later found on eBay for oh my god. But this place had like an egregious amount of exclusive merch. From Switch cases to decks to figures to plushes to cups to stickers to full kitchen sets, jackets, shirts, cards, and tons of other stuff I have never even seen before.
We walked out of there with 3 giant bags of stuff.
So with a couple heavy bags by my side, I checked out and saw an incriminatingly high number. Like a number around 270,110 yen. And for what it's worth, the goal of this video isn't to flex my financial incompetence. It's really just a cry for help.
But it's okay, because remember, we anticipated this with our extra suitcases, which I am starting to wonder if they are going to be enough, but surely we will come down.
This day was honestly pretty packed because our next field trip was to Creature's headquarters.
You know, just the place where they make Pokemon cards.
The place where cards get made?
It was gorgeous in there. They had these awesome sculptures of giant Pokemon cards with crystals, and all the walls were lined with 3D card art. It felt like I was in a building with a lot of significance. Because I was.
They let us explore the office and have some Q&A sessions with some higher-ups in the company.
We got a tour around the building, met the TCG card testers, and were able to ask them questions about their process. Even got to have a little Q&A session with Atsushi Nagashima, the game director of the Pokemon TCG. It was funny, one of the people in our group asked how they chose which Pokemon to make cards for. A good question. And then followed it up with, I really like Mantike, but there's only 2 Mantike cards that exist. And the assistant pulled up a list of all the Pokemon Mantike cards that have ever been created, and sure enough, there were only 2. The director chuckled and was essentially like, yeah, sometimes Pokemon get lost in the cracks. We kind of just make cards of Pokemon I like. For example, my favorite Pokemon is Gengar. And you know what? That actually makes a lot of sense. Also, we were able to have a Q&A session with the Pokemon card art director and 3 artists who actually draw art for the cards. That was super interesting, and I was so incredibly inspired by that discussion.
You know all of those cute little Pokemon cards that are all just made out of clay? Yeah, the lady who made those was just there.
That artist's name is Yuka Mori, and she was in that panel. I was so starstruck. Those are some of my favorite Pokemon cards. And not only that, but she hosted a little workshop for us where she gave us clay and taught us how to make little clay Magnemites.
Gave us all the materials to make our own.
Like in this card here. Speaking of this card, she brought the actual original Magnemite for us to see. That was by far the coolest thing that I've ever gotten to be a part of. We got to meet a piece of genuine history. I felt like I was meeting the president. Also, here's me and Jacob's Magnemites that we made.
And, mine turned out unique. When we finally left Creatures, it was pretty damn late. And I was like 16 hours of jet lag kinda tired. But who cares, cause tomorrow we're going to Shibuya. You know, the place where you spend money. I finally got to meet my hero Sprigatito and then came across a dangerous entity known as the Tokyo Nintendo Store.
It was like a bullet was shot through our credit.
Like, look, I have worked on this channel for nearly a decade at this point, and all of that work has come to fruition right now for me to spend all of my money in Japan. Well, at least it was better than the Pokemon Center from the other day. So what if I told you there's another Pokemon Center? This was a bit more of a traditional merch store that sold about exactly what you'd expect to. A good amount of stuff here could probably be found online. But as for the other exclusive stuff, yeah, I bought that shit too. I mean, I don't even think it's that I'm bad at saving money. I think it's that I'm really good at saving money and am now getting to spend all of it right here. This mall even had a Capcom store with a separate Monster Hunter section, which luckily only cost me a fraction of what the Pokemon stores did. Then I stumbled upon Jaiden forming an entirely new hyperfixation, so I just ignored it and kept walking.
In the shopping center, I saw a little gacha machine with little miniature Chiikawa plushes. I was only interested in getting Chiikawa, but I decided to test my luck anyway. And I got him first try! Now I had 2 of them. Yes, the original was still in my pocket. You can safely assume he is in my pocket for the entirety of this video. I've got pictures to prove it. Jacob snapped this awesome picture of the Chiikawa brain rot taking over.
Somehow in doing so, I ended up in an Evangelion pop-up which featured art that went, like, comically hard. They also had themed Zippo lighters, hoodies, and another hole in my pocket. And then when I exited the store, I turned right and saw this. Which... sure. I stopped by one last store, bought some cards, and had some of the best food I've ever had. Which became something I said a lot this trip. To finish the night, I went to an orchestra, got dinner with a friend, and then had perhaps the most interesting fan interaction of all time. I came across a store dedicated to all things Shonen Jump, so I decided to look around in hopes of giving in to my materialistic urges. But then like a small child came up and pointed at me and just said, "Sanji-san!"
Before his mother quickly yanked him away.
weird, right? I assumed it was just like a bad word for foreigner or something like that. But then I realized he didn't say Sanji-san.
Poor kid saw his first blonde guy in real life and immediately thought it was Sanji.
So, moving on from all that, this store was heaven. I know this is supposed to be a video about Pokemon, but look, just let me talk about this, okay? This place had charms, cups, shirts, hats, power, and the coolest mugs I've ever seen. So as you'd expect, I bought nearly all of it.
Later that day, we also got to attend the Pokemon Symphony, where a live orchestra played Pokemon songs, and it was absolutely incredible. Video game orchestras are so cool. It always tugs on my heartstrings to see video game music transformed into such a beautiful new art form. Highly recommend attending one if you have any favorite games or franchises.
At this point, you just kind of expect my house to look like a shitty souvenir shop. Then I finished my night by just walking around, exploring the city, and getting 50 Shades of Fucked Up again at karaoke and day 5. After a half week of side quests and field trips, it was finally time for Pokemon Worlds to start.
It was exciting. People flooded into the venue. We watched the opening ceremony in the crowd.
The opening ceremonies rolled out, and just like that, players from all across the globe were ready to compete for it all inside this incredibly well-decorated convention center.
Just wow. This is the whole reason why we're here. We went back to shopping.
Returning to the merch store and buying every single one of my favorite Pokemon in Sitting Cuties form, and God!
Look at this cute little Chico book I found in a nearby bookstore. At this point, we were absolutely pushing it in terms of luggage space, and we were day 4 into a 2.5-week trip.
This is bad. Like, I've already purchased another 2 whole empty suitcases and spent another 80,250 yen.
Okay, we knew we were gonna need extra suitcases. Getting a few extra couldn't hurt. Look, the flights were paid for. We were still saving money at this point, I think. That's my rationalization. I'm going with that.
God, look at this addiction. Isn't it beautiful? So thanks again to Pokemon for buying my flight just for me to do this. And I'm pretty sure I paid my flight back at this point.
Also in the mall were tons of Pokemon monitors straight up playing the World Championships. TCG, Pokemon Go, VGC. Japan treated Worlds like it was the Super Bowl. And it was just so cool to see one of my main interests so culturally celebrated. People of all ages would stop by to watch for a bit before going back to their shopping. I can't explain it, but it just made me very happy. We even got to see Wolfie live on the monitors. How'd he do? He did great. Don't worry about it. Nothing happened. Look, we were just happy to see our friend on the Pokeball screen. Proud of you, Wolfie. You're so cool.
Anyways, that night ended off with Pokemon showing off their new Path to the Peak animated series. That's essentially just a battle shonen with breakneck pacing as this girl creates an oddish deck and goes near undefeated before winning Worlds. It's pretty and all, but like, damn, what a competitor. But for the next day, I had to hop on a plane bright and early because I had other plans in mind.
The second day of Worlds was hype. So hype that we left Yokohama and flew to Osaka.
After landing in Osaka, I took a taxi to the event of a lifetime, Hatsune Miku's Magical Mirai.
Also known as one of the biggest Hatsune Miku expos and concerts ever. The real ones know how huge that is for me. I remember looking out the window of the taxi, getting so excited to see people wearing their Miku shirts and kimonos, and they had Miku bags. I felt like I was finally around my people.
That's right. I was finally going to see the Vocaloid legend up close and personal.
Since getting super into Miku, it became one of my biggest dreams to see her live in concert. Who knows if we'd ever get this perfect of an opportunity again? What if she invites me backstage and we became friends? I couldn't figure out how the Japanese ticket system worked, so Emily ended up having to help me out. She was also the one who told me about the concert in the first place, so thank you, Emily, my hero, my savior. We got tickets, but not actually.
Getting concert tickets for something like this in Japan is hard.
Because if you don't know, the way Japan does most of their online ticket systems is through a gacha. Yeah, random lottery. No matter how much money I was willing to hypothetically spend to get these tickets, at the end of the day, we were all just like those little numbered balls in that bingo spinner thing.
Jaden and I both entered a raffle for them in like May.
Months pass as I eagerly await our fate. Then, the email pops up in my inbox. I click it, scanning it way too quickly to understand any of the contents until my eyes catch it. Successfully obtained tickets. We're gonna see Miku!
and as one of God's little favorites to print out Miku tickets inside of a 7-Eleven.
Again, this place is just a place of wonder over here.
Suddenly life had color again. This is what living feels like. Air tasted more pure. The sun was smiling, beaming even. I smiled back for the first time. Something smelled like toast. You have no idea how excited I was. I don't even understand why I love Hatsune Miku as much as I do, but she has become one of the pillars of my being.
But since the show didn't start for a few hours, I decided to do what I do best and go to yet another convention center of a merch store.
We get there, walk into the convention center, and a blast of Hatsune Miku hits us. Giant Miku statues and posters, booths stocked with Miku merchandise.
I'm sure you're already expecting them to have Miku shirts, Miku backpacks, Miku glow sticks.
Almost everyone dressed head to toe in Miku clothes. I saw people with Hatsune Miku suitcases to hold all the Miku things they were buying. I immediately wanted to run around and look at everything all at once. There were multiple times where Jacob lost me because I just started walking off in different directions like a Miku moth. We spent a few hours looking around and buying things,
as well as an even larger financially destructive merch booth where you can get everything you could possibly dream of. So we already know where this one's going, right?
We spent a lot of money, but eventually we started getting ready for the live concert.
One quick outfit change and we were both ready for the show.
I was giddy with excitement at this point. She was gonna be right in front of me. We found our seats and dude, we were pretty damn close to the stage, especially for randomly selected seats.
Not only did we get lucky with pretty damn good seats, but I am taller than this entire country. So our seats were pretty damn great, but as expected, I couldn't film or possess dangerous goods.
I couldn't believe how close we were gonna be to Hatsune Miku. I already knew going into it I was gonna cry frame one. If you didn't know, it's pretty standard to have special Miku glow sticks you can shake to the beat of whichever song is playing. You can even switch them to the coordinated color of whichever Vocaloid was on stage at the time. I've only learned about it from watching videos of concerts on YouTube thus far, and I gotta say, it was so fun to see people before the show warming up their arms and practicing their glow stick moves. They really take Hatsune Miku seriously, and I respect it so much. Some people were even quadruple wielding glow sticks. The record I personally saw was 6, like some sort of Miku Wolverine. It was a huge bummer though, because Jacob and I tried to buy some sticks of our own at the expo hall, but they were already sold out, so we didn't have any. And it was kind of embarrassing. Soon enough, the Miku songs the venue was playing started getting louder and the house lights dimmed. And man, seeing the lights turn down and the teal glow of all the sticks emanating together to light up the room, honestly, it made me tear up. I don't even think I realized how much I loved Hatsune Miku until that moment, being completely surrounded by people who love her just as much and more than I do. This is what it's like to be into music, isn't it? To experience these moments being completely engulfed in a community, all connected by a single art. I get it now. It's beautiful. The room glowed Miku blue and everyone was cheering and shaking their glow sticks, anticipating her appearance. All the Vocaloids were introduced one by one with text on the hologram screen. Mako, Luca, Kaito, Kagamina, Rin, and Len. And then Hatsune Miku. The crowd went ballistic. I could already feel myself holding back tears. A little digital poof explosion goes off, and there she was, right in front of us. She started singing and Jacob and I were cheering and bouncing with the rest of the crowd. By the time she got a couple songs in, Jacob and I were definitely feeling left out for not having the glow sticks to shake, so we pulled out our Miku plushes to use in place of them, and that felt much better. By the end of the concert, Jacob was even dual wielding Mikus. After a few songs, Miku disappeared and the other Vocaloids played some of their songs. I honestly don't know them as well, so I wasn't too familiar with most of the songs they all played, but I was having a great time nonetheless. It was nice to not be fighting tears the whole time anymore as well. Then Miku came back and the concert continued on and we learned some real nice glow stick moves, replaced with our Miku plushes of course. There's the classic arm cheer on beat, the on beat off beat, the building cheer on to beat, even throw in the advanced building cheer on to double beat with a height. I'll say it, doing all those glow stick movements was honestly a really crazy arm workout. Like, we were working biceps and shoulders for 2 hours straight. Imagine Beat Saber, but higher up in the posture with almost no breaks. And if you don't commit, then Hatsune Miku thinks you hate her. I wanted to mention that in Vocaloid concerts, obviously they have a recording of the vocals because, you know, but all the other instruments were absolutely real. There was a live band playing all the songs for the entire set. In the middle of the concert, there was even a nice little appreciation moment showcasing all the band members by name, accompanied by a little solo they got to play. I'm a big bass fan and would love to learn how to play it one day, and I know bass players get super neglected because everyone wants to watch the cool guitar players, so I gave extra attention to the Miku bass player. They definitely noticed me cheering for them, probably because I could tell everyone was watching the guitar players and I was the only one actually looking at them. And the bass player smiled super wide and raised his bass to me, and I just thought that was a nice moment. Appreciate your bass players, guys. They need it. Anyway, the concert went on. There were awesome lasers and sparklers, fun costume changes from all the Vocaloids, great set list. Shout out to the guy in front of us that was there with his girlfriend and definitely more excited to be there than she was.
The show was incredible, it was breathtaking, it was life-changing, it was everything I could have asked for, but it was also copyrighted. But if you look in the crowd, I'm somewhere over here.
Finally, it came to the encore. We had to convince Miku to play one more song. You know how, at least in America, people are cheering and screaming for an encore? Well, Japan is like so quiet and polite. They were saying it like a suggestion. It was so quiet, kind of just a long session of applause with a whisper of Miku. Miku. Like, if I were Hatsune Miku, I would have questioned if they even wanted the encore in the first place. Also, we were asking for the encore for like 5 minutes straight. I was fully convinced she had left the building. But she came out for her last song. It was a blast. She was in her magical Mirai outfit for the year. And it was over. We did have to take the train to get back later that night and got super lost again. And we never get better at it. Don't expect anything to change in that regard.
So when I was leaving, this dumb, stupid American had to learn how public transit works, and then my phone had the audacity to show me that I'm walking about 10 to 20,000 more steps than normal. And it's like, yeah, I know, but you don't gotta be so loud about it.
We did finally get back to Yokohama, crashed for the night, and had a nice, slow morning as we got ready for finals later that day.
Today was finally the day for finals of the Pokemon World Championship, which I started watching from bed. I mean, I'm in Japan on a Sunday morning. I get to watch new One Piece episodes live as they air.
To any One Piece fans who are caught up, we were in Japan for the One Piece anime episode. You know what I'm talking about. 1072. We were able to turn on our hotel TV and watch it live. And that was so cool. I don't talk about how much I love One Piece much, mainly because it doesn't really come up. But One Piece is peak, and it was an honor to be in Japan at such an iconic part of the manga and anime's history.
And like, what an insane episode to watch live.
Anyway, back to Pokemon. Sorry about that.
It was time to walk down to the convention center and witness multiple champions be crowned as winners of Pokemon's World Championship. Some competitors tapped their screens really hard, some of them just played Mew, and some of them... yeah, I don't even know what's going on here.
We were able to watch the final VGC match live, got to chat and eat dinner with Wolfie and some other friends, had a late night hangout with Jan again, and that was about it.
Watching this entire tournament was so fun and inspiring, and in case you missed it, they announced that Worlds next year is gonna take place in Hawaii. Which was a little ill-timed.
And then made up for it by showing off new cards, new Pokemon, new moves, and whatever the hell this thing is.
My experience here was genuinely unforgettable, and I am so grateful to the Pokemon Company for finally giving me an excuse to visit Japan. I mean, like, I play modded games and say fuck, so I'm just as surprised as you are that I was here. So now what?
Sure, Worlds might have ended, but I extended my trip in Japan for 2 more weeks and stayed in the cutest little Airbnb imaginable as the greatest, like the absolute greatest days of my life took place.
Day 7 meant it was time to pack up all our stuff from the hotel, say goodbye to Pokemon and Yokohama, and head on over to the apartment we rented for the rest of our stay just outside of Tokyo. At this point, we had filled up all 6 suitcases and multiple backpacks.
They also gave me tons of free merch.
A truckload of gifts.
And it's like, I don't even know how to carry this. This is genuinely too much.
That we genuinely had no idea what to do with. We're grateful nonetheless. Thank you, Pokemon.
Where do you want me to? I don't need it. Thank you. But like, where?
But yeah, the taxi ride was a bit awkward. So are you meeting up with some friends? No. After we got situated in the new place, we decided to look around the area and grab some lunch. And I gotta say, the little hole-in-the-wall restaurant Jacob found was some of the best ramen I've ever had ever. They even made it vegetarian for me, which was extremely kind of them. Food modifying is a bit tricky in Japan compared to the States, so I was very, very thankful. And it was delicious. We then proceeded to do absolutely nothing for the rest of the day because we were exhausted from the trip so far. I haven't mentioned absolutely everything we'd been doing on the trip because it would be a lot of, first we did this and it was cool, then we did this and it was cool. Even though it was such a pleasure to be invited, I was so dead and definitely looked super not approachable or friendly to the rest of the group by the end of it. Sorry, guys. But neither time nor Japan stops for anyone, so we had to keep on chugging along. There were a bunch of friends we wanted to see while in Japan, and one of them was Connor. He wanted to take us to what he deemed his favorite Italian place ever. I asked if it was like fancy Italian, to which I was given the answer of no. So we get there having a great time, and suddenly we realize Junichi Masuda, the director of Game Freak, is there having dinner. Not a fancy dinner, my ass. I then look down to see the Freddy Fazbear FNAF t-shirt that I am wearing. Not the best Jaden moment to exist, but hey, what can you do? The food was phenomenal though. I already mentioned the best ramen I've ever had while on the trip, but this was genuinely the best pasta I've ever had in my entire life. Maybe even a top 3 meals ever for me. I don't know what the other 2 would be, but that Connor place is definitely up there.
Just me and a few friends exploring these beautiful cities, eating again the best food I have ever had.
The next day we went to the One Piece store in Shibuya and bought a lot of stuff because there was a lot of topical and hype things in there, as you could imagine. If you don't get it, go catch up and come back. Don't worry, it won't take too long. My favorite character is Mihawk, but out of all the stuff the store had to offer, there were only a few stickers and a single keychain for Mihawk. I'm still mauling about that one. I just want more Mihawk. Is that too much to ask for? Even this guy got better merch. The world's greatest swordsman deserves better. I guess I'll just take my Zoro and Law stuff. That's cool too, I suppose. I also found a bunch of Chikawa stuff in a Kittyland store, and this is truly when you get to see where things start going downhill for me. I just like the funny little cartoon bear thing. What, is that such a crime? I don't remember what we did the rest of the day. I think we just crashed and passed out. This trip, as surreal as it's been so far, has been absolutely taking a toll on me, and I desperately needed to just not move or talk or exist for a bit. We were doing so many different things that were all awesome, and hanging out with so many different people that were all awesome, but man, I am not built for extended periods of that much excitement and socializing. As much as I would like to change this fact, I'm also not a very active person. I know. Up until this trip, I was practically sitting down 24/7, working all the time to prep as much work as possible so I could have a guilt-free 3 weeks off, and my muscles were definitely starting to decay at that point. I looked at my phone's step meter thing, and there was one day where I literally got 300 steps. That's pathetic. And suddenly, I'm logging over 20,000 daily. My body was screaming. What the hell are you doing out there? Please stop. Plus, we were in Japan during the hottest, most humid time of the year. Every time we left the air-conditioned luxury of a building, we would immediately be drenched in sweat. Look, I'm used to the heat. I grew up in Arizona, but even this was too much. So yeah, crash and burn it was. Tokyo Disneyland was a bit underwhelming. It felt like a slightly worse version of the one in California because of the oddly spaced layout and surprisingly empty vibe. We did go to a Stitch themed show thing, and as we were walking in, a worker stopped us and said, "Oh, excuse me, Stitch only speaks Japanese," like warning us it's not super tourist friendly. But I just think the statement of Stitch only speaks Japanese is hilarious. We went in anyway, and yep, Stitch only spoke Japanese. Kazoku. Yeah, overall, it was not the best thing we did, but apparently, I didn't know this, Japan has 2 Disneys, Disneyland and Disney Sea. And we went to land, which is unanimously deemed the worst of the two. So, oops, better luck next time. Jacob and I took 2 more rest days where we just turned to ash. Then up and at 'em, back to Osaka we go. This time we went to an Eve concert. Besides Hatsune Miku, the Japanese band Eve is the only other concert I've said I wanted to go see. I love their music videos they have for all their songs. It's always such beautiful animation. And by the way, they're the ones who sang the season 1 Jujutsu Kaisen anime opening theme, if you're lost. Earlier in the trip, Jacob just so happened to look up if they were doing a concert while we were there, and lo and behold, they were. He got some totally not scalped tickets, which turned out to be a super complicated process, so thank you, Jacob. You're the bestest friend I've ever had. Thank you for going through the trenches for silly old me. Anyway, the concert was so incredible. The atmosphere was fantastic. They had awesome visual effects going on. The glow bands a lot of people bought were perfectly synced to the music and colors on the stage, which really enhanced the experience. The music was great, which, I mean, of course it was. That was the whole reason we went in the first place.
Even seeing multiple of my favorite artists live, which is crazy to me.
Japanese encores are so much different from the American ones. They're so quiet and polite. There was pretty much no screaming and cheering. It was just a long applause with a semi-whisper chant of encore, encore. And they also made us wait like 5 minutes for them to come back out. My hands were getting itchy just from clapping so much, that's how long it took. And then when they finally came out, they ended up doing like 5 extra songs. I mean, I'm not complaining, but after the 4th time thinking, man, that was a great last extra song. Well, time to head home. Wait. Another? It starts getting a bit comedic. This is just a side tangent, but Jacob went off to use the bathroom before the show started and came back 10 minutes later like, dude, this is crazy, but it took me a bit longer to find a bathroom because there were so many extra women's bathrooms, which is like, whoa, that's actually so smart. There's always such a huge line for the women's bathroom compared to the men's in any scenario. I was just shocked Japan was like, okay, then we'll make more women's bathrooms to fix that problem. Like, it was so simple. I know in America it would probably turn into a stupid political thing, but it made me so happy Japan just implemented such an obvious and straightforward solution so easily for the gals. The next day, we headed over to Universal, which was hands down the best amusement park I've ever been to.
So given that Universal Studios featured all of my personality types, I made damn sure to show up at Park Open, and I'm sure glad I did, because they apparently have a One Piece live show at the end of the day, and you have to reserve your seats quickly before they all sell out. And what I thought was cute was all the staff surrounding the One Piece stuff wore little marine outfits, and I don't know, I just thought it was nice. But before riding any rides, I set out on the most dangerous attraction of them all, the merch stores.
Jacob and I both agreed we would window shop for the first part of the day, and then buy all the things we wanted as we were leaving so we wouldn't have to lug around a bunch of bags all day. But we immediately saw a little One Piece shop and cracked.
I was hoping that I wasn't going to buy too much for this because I might have already had to buy 2 extra suitcases for this trip, but unfortunately, we all know how that went.
We just wanted to wear these One Piece headbands. That's rule-breaking worthy.
Honestly, it just had it all. From plushies to exclusive shirts, towels, cardigans, and even designer handbags. As much as I wanted to buy them all, I was gonna have to wait till the end of the day because I only brought this one bag and I had big dreams. But I did buy this cute little headband though. Also, even the Nintendo World merch store was massively more impressive than their Hollywood counterpart.
We also got some towels because, surprise, surprise, it was freaking hot. I know I've been complaining about the weather here and there, but my lord, it was miserably scorching. Japan has such a big culture around staying cool while outside, and I totally get it now. People would be walking around with little fans, ice packs, towels. A lot of women had parasols. I'll say, if we didn't get those towels, we probably could have passed out from heat stroke that day. Later on, I even ended up getting another towel. It was a cute Pikachu one, but I got it mainly because it was a cloak design. After soaking that thing in cold water and putting it on, my body temperature instantly lowered like 5 degrees. However, that meant I was walking around the park looking like this.
And one thing I was not prepared for when coming to Japan was that the peanuts are huge here. Like, every single person in this entire country loves Snoopy. And as much as I love buying random merch, Japan
loves making random merch. Like they even have Hello Kitty fire extinguishers made for a very specific kind of person. Anyways, I haven't even started talking about the park yet, so the first attraction I ended up at was a 4D experience through the world of Jujutsu Kaisen.
Oh, where the seats move around.
They had a little food stand outside with a fucked up churro and whatever the hell these things are. So I bought water, this weird hot pocket, and no, I did not buy this interesting souvenir cup. Since it was so early in the day, I got to immediately walk through the line and see the show, and obviously I couldn't record any of it, and it's not like that shit had subtitles anyway, so allow me to recreate what I remember from it. The main crew, who you know and love, sets off to fight a big bad guy and wins. Then they set off to fight a big bad lava guy while performing suboptimal tricks and flips that utilize the Z-axis only for the game to get their asses beat. Until Gojo appears and uses the power of God in anime to save the day while wearing merch from his favorite theme park, Universal Studios Japan. Wow! Which felt like the exact plot anyone could have guessed going into the show, and since Japan loves indulging in a little bit of capitalism, the exit to this 4D experience led me straight to a gift shop. A very, very tempting gift shop, but I had to be strong, at least for now. It was a fun show though. You got to learn a lot about the characters from Jujutsu Kaisen that you wouldn't be able to get otherwise. Like, did you know that Gojo has a passion for popcorn? After that, I just walked around, saw a set for a Super Mario live show, I think, and apparently also fucking Sesame Street. Universal even has this whole cul-de-sac dedicated to the Minions, and I'm shocked I did not know they were that international. Like, these dudes have a burger.
The park, of course, had a bunch of cool themed restaurants, one of them being a super cool One Piece restaurant. Did I mention I like One Piece?
I was ready for my first formal Universal dining experience at Sanji's Pirate Restaurant.
But we didn't know you needed a reservation.
So... Oops. To my surprise though, there wasn't just one, but two One Piece themed places to eat here. So this is the Pirate Feast restaurant. It's clearly just a diner for Jurassic Park, but it now has One Piece decorations hung up. Like, is that a dinosaur? Nope, it's Monkey D. Luffy.
It was awesome though, I love One Piece.
These meals weren't anything crazy, but they at least looked better than the average theme park food. They had a meat dish for Luffy that I had my eye on, as well as other meals for Usopp and Frankie with desserts centered around Zoro and Sanji. They also had souvenir barrel mugs with Luffy and Chopper on them. You know, I'm just proud to say that I successfully controlled my impulsiveness. Anyways, they didn't really do anything besides hanging up some banners, but they also had like this giant painting and you know, and yeah, I don't know. I just think I'm pretty easy to please with stuff like this. I like consuming products. As far as the food goes, it wasn't anything worth creating a religion over, but it was far better than where my expectations were. Incredibly low. Honestly, it could have just been awful, and I would have been happy that my rice was in the shape of a straw hat. So when I finished my food, I just walked around the park aimlessly until stumbling upon even more themed food. I know every franchise Universal has deserves some amount of representation, but they made a Jaws hot dog. The Jaws dog. So, how do I transition out of that one? Super Nintendo World, but in Japan this time, which you apparently also need a reservation for. Luckily, they had 2 reservations left for both me and Jaden. Unfortunately, though, the reservation was for 9 p.m. It is currently 10 a.m. So I guess today is just gonna be a long day. After that, I somehow ended up in Wonderland, which is Universal's kingdom for all things Sesame Street, Snoopy, and even Hello Kitty. Like, this place had Snoopy plushes, Snoopy bags, and even Snoopy ramen. And to stress how big the Peanuts really are over here, allow me to show you this entire Peanuts-themed play area for children that was gigantic. However, when the walls start to turn pink, you know it's time for Hello Kitty. One of the rides they had was just a cupcake version of Disney's teacups, but since Jaden easily gets motion sickness, we went at a moderate speed and it was all right. So before I could even process where I truly was, I got flashbanged by an onslaught of Muppets. As you'd expect, nearly everything here was made for children because, yeah, I don't really need to explain that one. Down the street from that, they had like cities of other merch stores and, well, a Nintendo cafe, what? Apparently inside was just a selection of some themed desserts, but luckily these weren't made by Satan himself this time. Then there was another store attached to it, and like, why is this shirt kind of heat too? I left the store after hearing a driving bass outside and realized that I ended up in the middle of a parade. And then it hit me. I get why people like theme parks. Suddenly, even Disney adults started to make sense to me. Like, I just never got the appeal. I don't give a shit about this guy. But if you give me a parade featuring Pokemon, Mario Kart, the Minions, I guess, how could I not want to make this my entire personality? Like, they had tons of different Mario characters and enemies, but even more Pokemon scattered throughout the entire parade. And the best part was all of this was right next to a One Piece themed version of the Hollywood Dream roller coaster.
But I get super motion sick and forgot to bring nausea medicine, so no roller coasters for us. But I shall return one day.
At least the parade was around the block from yet another store showcasing Pokemon merch this time. Look, I know, I'm sorry. I know that most of this video has just been about me pointing at merchandise, but I am a personified bad stereotype of ADHD that can only focus on the newest, shiniest thing. Like, look at this! A shiny little Bulbasaur souvenir cup to drink out of. Oh yeah, the merch store. I didn't really expect any Pokemon stuff here, so I was pretty surprised to find yet another fire shirt accompanied by some nice bags, headbands, hats, and whatever this thing is. They also had exclusive Mario figures and better shirts than America's Nintendo World. But when I went outside, I came across a Monster Hunter VR attraction that puts you straight in the game. And weirdly enough, they won't let you enter if you're wearing a tank top. Jaiden was wearing a tank top. Cool. So after walking past a now crowded Jujutsu Kaisen showing, I learned that this random Mario set is a water-themed live show set for later in the day. Then I met a celebrity and discovered the Spider-Man section of the park, which I didn't even know existed. I'm one of those superhero guys who don't really care about any of this, but I like this guy for some reason. And yet again, Universal keeps making some banger shirts. However, when it came time to ride the Spider-Man ride, Jaiden was actually allowed to this time.
Went on a super cool 3D VR Spider-Man ride.
Eventually, after waiting long enough and always feeling like I was close for a whole hour, I finally made it to the end, boarded the ride, and that is all I was allowed to show. Sorry. Most of Universal is screen rights, same for America. I do what I can. One thing I really liked though was that the Spider-Man they used was this guy and not any of these guys, and the antagonist looked like this instead of this. Like, I don't even read the comics or anything, but I just thought it was worth noting given how different it is from everything else I've seen in America.
We started buying all the stuff we window shopped for as we waited for the One Piece live show to begin. Again, please refrain from judging. I am being vulnerable and open here. But
so after escaping yet another gift shop, I showed up at the Super Mario Water Show just a minute before it started, and by that, I mean a minute before it was canceled due to intense heat. Oh yeah, it's like 100 degrees here and humid as hell, and by the way, I am extremely sweaty. If only there was a live show designed around cooling people off. If only. Since I really didn't have anything to do until the One Piece show at 6 p.m., I decided to spend my 2 p.m. just walking around until I decided to kill time by exploring Minion Boulevard. Also, remember how I just mentioned the intense heat? Yeah, that guy's probably gonna die today. This entire street was much more decorated than I would have expected, and it all looked pretty good. From the statues to the buildings, and even creating a Bank of Evil ATM that actually works. But I don't know, I just get bad vibes from it.
we tried to cool down by going on a Minions thing called Freeze Ray sliders that claimed to cool riders down with a blast of chilled mist from a giant freeze ray.
But that May did some pretty heavy lifting.
But we got on and absolutely did not even touch a drop of the mist because it never ended up getting in range of our cart.
And the worst part is that it's not even false advertising. Like, you may, but you also won't.
That felt like an actual tragedy at the time. After a few hours of rides and being broiled alive, we decided to fully cool off by going on the Jurassic Park ride that's just giant splash mountain with dinosaurs.
This ride allowed me to buy ponchos at the start, which let me know that I was in the right place.
We cooked in line for probably a solid hour, and as soon as we were literally stepping foot inside the ride,
I was hoping that this water ride would cool me off, and God did it.
it started pouring rain.
To my surprise, the fake rain on this ride, it wasn't fake.
Now that's just not fair.
It started pouring, and I'm just a little bit stupid. I legit thought it was part of the experience at first.
I don't even understand how that happened, but whatever.
The rain only lasted like 30 minutes, but it was long enough to cool down the park, and the Super Mario Water Show was a go. And I don't know what I was expecting, but I don't think this was it.
They played some fun little custom songs and had all these dancers alongside the mascots. And then out of nowhere, they started absolutely blasting the crowd with like gallons of water.
I mean, they gave Mario the flood fire hose to douse down the youth of Japan.
I didn't even see it coming. It was like firefighters showed up to put out a giant fire, except the fire was a bunch of Japanese people.
And I don't know, I think that's pretty memorable. Then as I was trying to find food, I experienced the strangest fever dream ever. Imagine yourself walking through a crowded area in a foreign country. Now, imagine All-Star by Smash Mouth playing in the background as you feel your body approaching a fight-or-flight reaction. And then you remember, you're at Universal Studios and Shrek is right there. So after that nightmare scenario played out, we grabbed dinner at Snoopy's Backlot Cafe. Another example of theme park cafes where the vibes are unparalleled, but the food is alright. I mean, the fries and the chicken nuggets sides were fine, but the Snoopy spaghetti was incredible. And since the rest of the theme park was a goddamn sauna, we decided to sit in the air-conditioned Snoopy Cafe for an extra hour until it was time for the One Piece live show.
The time came and we got to file in for the special One Piece live show.
If you're familiar with Universal, the set for this was in Waterworld, which makes sense. This event was packed. I was right behind the splash zone and not allowed to film anything.
And even though Jacob and I didn't understand a single part of it because it was all in Japanese.
Again, this live performance does not have subtitles, so I just kind of had to guess what the plot was.
It was awesome.
I think Luffy and the Straw Hats were just somewhere and saved Rebecca, who was being attacked by medieval guards with like LED neon light. I don't know. And then the antagonist from Sailor Moon captured part of the crew, made Usopp evil, or like possessed. Maybe he became evil Usopp? I think he had powers like that or something, but then they just injected the fan service straight into our veins by having almost every major character from the series appear as a clone, I think. And then they all fought in some crazy battle royale. Then they let us film the last segment of the show, so let me use this footage to showcase how incredible the costumes were.
The costume design was phenomenal.
But before I give this show praise, I really want to talk about this pitiful Chopper costume. I was losing my shit the whole show laughing at this. Like, is there a child in there? Like, this thing is tiny. I don't know, but my favorite part of the show was just watching these real life humans in hair and makeup run around the entire venue as this pitiful little creature attempts to keep, I don't know. The costume is just not made for active movements, you know? Anyways, yeah, the show was fun. I loved it. I'm pretty sure it was dubbed by the actual Japanese voice actors, and all the stage actors just kind of like acted along to this pre-recorded audio. And it was pretty funny watching the stage actor for Luffy do one of these. All in all, a great experience, even if I didn't understand a goddamn word. The show was just fun, but again, the most impressive part was getting to see all these costumes in person, and stuff like this just makes me hope that we get more of the live action.
It was a bit unfortunate though, because the seats were all in like a half circle formation around the stage. As much as they tried to make the show enjoyable from all angles, it was pretty hard to see the main things going on in the center. My only true complaint though is that Zoro didn't come to our side at all. All the other characters rotated around so we could see them, but Zoro only did it at the very end to take a bow. Also, Mihawk being included would have been nice, but it's okay.
So leaving Waterworld as the clock rung 8 p.m., I had a whole hour before it was time to go to Nintendo World and set out on a mission to buy every single thing that has caught my eye all day. I am tired of pretending like I have self-control. I think I've made it very clear that I have none, and personally love buying merchandise that I probably do not need. I got the towels, I got the shirts, the other shirts, even Mars shirts, random plushies, and even though some of them were gifts for friends, most of them weren't, and I have a problem. With nearly 100,000 yen burned on souvenirs, my perfectly timed escapes brought me to Mario's doorstep at precisely 8:59 p.m. 1 minute before I walked through the doors of Japan's Super Nintendo World. I was excited to compare it to the American version, and just off the first impressions, I gotta say, I'm sorry, Japan blows our shit out the water. Universal Studios Hollywood really does not have enough room to make their own Super Nintendo World, so they just took everything and shoved it in a corner, and boy, That park's cramped as hell. They did what they could, but let me show you how Japan does it better. After walking through the warp pipe entrance, I was immediately met with this massively spacious kingdom separated across multiple floors. Both Nintendo worlds are gorgeous, don't get me wrong, and both always bless you with this kind of magic you instantly feel when you see the world of Mario be brought to life. But God, was it nice to just have some room to breathe. I mean, they're even building a Donkey Kong park soon, and they're not even hiding where it is. Also, the park closes in an hour, by the way, which means I will not get to try Chef Toad's Japanese Cafe. And if you've been watching this video, yes, you know I checked out the merch store, but fortunately for my wallet, it wasn't really different from anything else I've already seen throughout the park. So given my limited time, I felt like I had to choose between the Mario Kart ride and Yoshi's Adventure. And since this one is exclusive to Japan, my decision was pretty simple.
We got up at 6 a.m. by the way, so we pretty much just rode the Yoshi's Island ride they don't have in the States and headed home because that's all the energy we had left.
Like everything else in Nintendo World, the atmosphere and even just the line was incredible. I know it's silly, I know it's not real, but you really do feel immersed with how convincing all of the decor is. I didn't feel like I got isekai'd into Yoshi's Island or anything, but I just had a lot of fun waiting in line, and I think that's one of the most impressive things a ride can do. And eventually, after meeting Toadette, I boarded my Yoshi and got a beautiful tour of the park. I was sad that I didn't have enough time to fully explore in Super Nintendo World, but at least I got a taste of it. I mean, at this point, I'll take any excuse to come back to Japan one day. Yoshi's Adventure is a pretty slow ride, like in a good way, because even outside of these views, it just recreates some scenes from Yoshi games like Island and Island DS, and then they hit us with these awesome guys and Captain Toad for some reason. My favorite part of the ride though has to be how chonky these rideable Yoshis are. It makes sense given that they have to hold two whole people, but then when you get in the car and you try to look forward, this is just your view the entire time. So upon leaving my Yoshi, I definitely maybe had enough time to sneak into the Mario Kart line, but I also just spent a whole day at a theme park in extreme heat and the sheets were sounding pleasant as hell.
But even just seeing that, it was miles better than the one in the States. Also, we picked up a little dinner at the 7-Eleven near our hotel. 7-Eleven is actually awesome in Japan, by the way. And they had a few little Chicoa plushie keychains and I bought them. Just being transparent here. We woke up early the next morning to catch our flight back to Tokyo and hurried over to the Kirby Cafe. Emily actually booked the reservation for us. She was meant to also be there, but she was only able to get 2 seats and gave them to us as a gift. Emily, I will always be indebted to you for your sacrifice. The cafe itself was so well decorated with all these little Kirby things, and the menu was adorable. I got the star curry and a magical little fruity drink with a Kirby marshmallow that triggered my cute aggression. Jacob got the pizza and a Kirby burger, but since he made modifications, the staff asked him to not post a picture of the burger to the public. Like, they didn't know he was a content creator or anything. I guess they just didn't want the public to see a naked Kirby burger. We also both got desserts. I already decided I was gonna consume the Kirby. The presentation was beautiful. It was literal art on a plate. Taste-wise, it was decent. The body was some sort of gelatin, which I wasn't too crazy about, but the rest was super tasty. I did my best, but he ended up looking like he was in a horrific accident when I threw in the towel. The cafe also has a special little private store connected to it. And yeah, what you expect happened definitely happened. We left with full bellies and bags, continued to look around the shopping center the cafe was connected to, and ended up walking into a gacha store. I am about to be very vulnerable with you here. This is one of the lowest points of my entire life. Please don't think too much less of me after what happened in that gacha store. So I walk in, spot Chiikawa, beeline it to the machine, obviously. Like I mentioned before, I'm only interested in Chiikawa, so I was only playing for him. But by the cursed luck of the gacha gods, I just could not get him. I was going back and forth between the machine and the coin exchange, getting multiples of every other little guy, but no Chiikawa. I could feel the workers' glances at me, probably because the desk they were standing behind was right next to the machine I was grinding. But after way too much money, he dropped. I got my well-earned, horribly priced at that point, Chiikawa. I then started looking at all the other machines, putting some coins in a few here and there, until I stopped at one that had a line of animals playing band instruments. They were very silly, but there was a little pigeon holding up cymbals, and I really wanted to get him for Jordan and Kelsey. In went the coins. Tiger, elephant, fox. It was happening again. Everything except the one I wanted. Which I know more or less that's the luck with gachas, but it was getting to the point where I was getting surprised the pigeon was dodging me as much as it was. Surely the next one. What? Eventually, I had to go back to the coin exchange, and as I was about to put in more money, I saw out of the corner of my eye one of the workers peek out and take a look in horror at all the gachapons that were sitting at the top of my bag. They then raised up their hand and said something in Japanese while shaking their head, and I knew in my heart I was being cut off. No, please! I can stop whenever. Just a few more hits and I'm done. The pigeon is next. I can feel it. Why do you look afraid? What's under the desk? I got kicked out of a gacha store. I had hit an all-time low. I told my friends and they said they probably just thought I was gonna try and resell them, but I don't even know if that would even make it sound better knowing I was getting so many that they thought I was robbing them blind. I just wanted my little Chikawa and pigeon with symbols. We made dinner plans that night with a friend and we were just about to grab a taxi and head back to freshen up, but Jacob and I caught sight of a fun anime and goodies shop. Who do we think we are? People with self-control? We'll make it quick! We rushed in and split up for optimization. As I was looking around, I saw it. A whole section dedicated to Chikawa. It was like someone put a freshly baked pie on a windowsill, and I was suddenly floating over to it. My eyes were zoned in, making sure I saw every single thing possible, putting Chikawa after Chikawa in the basket. Jacob eventually came over and showed me a picture he took on his phone. In my tunnel vision, all my eyes registered was that the picture showed more Chikawa in the store. I immediately went feral. Where? Jacob's eyebrows went up in surprise and maybe a bit of fear. And as I looked at the photo again, I realized Jacob wasn't showing me a picture of a different Chikawa section. He was showing me a picture of me at the current Chikawa section I was standing in because he thought it was funny. And in my Chikawa brain rot, I didn't even register I was in the picture. I just saw more Chikawa and went obsessive. This is how I am. Either stand by me or leave. No, I don't need an intervention. Put it away. We left. I looked longingly at the crane machine Chikawas we didn't have time for, and we made it in time for dinner. Plus, we ended up in another arcade nearby anyway, and I got myself a Chikawa from one of those machines, so it worked out. Stop. I don't want to hear it.
Spent the morning of my last day walking through the Tokyo heat for about a full 3 hours as if it was my own personal farewell to this trip that meant so much to me. It was beautiful, and it was peaceful, and it just felt like I got to be alone with myself. In a good way.
We spent the last day grabbing lunch with Emily and Didus. There was a cool One Piece scavenger hunt event going on, so we also did that with them. We basically had to walk around Shibuya and find special One Piece trading card posters hidden around the area, and if we found enough along with the special card of the day, we could get a limited edition mystery card. It was fun, but also hot, and all my clothes were sticking to my body. Didus generously let me borrow his umbrella, and I jumped for joy as he showed me it was coincidentally Chikawa themed. I don't know what's wrong with me. All I know is that bear makes me happy. We spent a few hours completing the scavenger hunt, got our special cards, and bid them farewell. Always good to see you guys. Bye-bye. I accidentally stole Didus' umbrella. It looked so calculated. They knew how much I was obsessed with Chikawa. They'd been watching my Instagram stories. Follow if you want to see brain rot in real time. Emily, I have the Chikawa umbrella. I didn't mean to steal it, I promise. It's not what it looks like. Since we were leaving in the morning and wouldn't be seeing them again, they just let me keep it. But the side-eye Jacob gave me the rest of the way back. I didn't mean to— stop it! Getting back to the apartment, reality hit us hard. We needed just a few more suitcases. Again. In total, we ended up buying 6 extra suitcases to hold everything we collectively bought. And even then, it was a struggle making it fit. Jacob ended up going professional Tetris mode, perfectly fitting everything into the suitcases with quite literally no extra room. But yeah, I just had an unforgettable trip, and I owe the opportunity to the Pokemon Company for inviting us to Japan in the first place. I'm extremely lucky to be in the position I am, and will be forever grateful.